see Spelman in the morning has always got plenty of bacon. That's always a good thing. Tell you a little bit about the Southwest California Legislative Council. How many of you are familiar with the Southwest California Legislative Council? That's good. This is something the rest of you need to know if you're in business, thinking about being in business, or work for somebody else's business, because the Southwest Legislative Council is here for you. It's a member benefit as a result of your membership in the Chamber of Commerce. Southwest California Legislative Council, we started about 8 years ago. It was formed by the Murrieta, Temecula, and Lake Elsinore Chambers of Commerce because we realized that you need a voice. Business in Southwest County needs a voice in Sacramento because there's a lot of bad stuff happening up there, specifically bad stuff that impacts your business. You've got people up there who don't understand how to run a business, and they're trying to get into your pockets every day of the week. And so we felt that you needed an advocate on behalf of small business. You know, the Chamber of Commerce is one thing, they can certainly advocate, but they didn't have the voice. They also realized that when you have more people out there, if you have a grassroots coalition working on your behalf, it makes a louder voice, more people sit up and take notice. And so we put together this coalition. Along the way then we picked up Wildemar, is also a member now. Menifee came on for a short time, then they left, they're coming back on. So we keep adding voices to the coalition out there. We currently represent about 2,500 businesses here in the local area, represents about 25,000 employees down here. So once again, our mission is strictly to advocate on behalf of local businesses. That's something that even the California Chamber of Commerce, with their big voice up there, is not able to do because a lot of their members are larger businesses. Some of the major businesses in the state of California, their interests are not always the same as your interest as a small local business owner. And so that's our job, is to advocate on your behalf. We put together a council. Each chamber votes 5 members onto the board of directors, and we've got some board members who sit on our board right now. If you'd hold up your hands. Don Murray, Nicole, we've got from Murrieta, from Temecula, so we've got a council of 16 members. We meet once a month. I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. Every year we take a look at what the policy platform should be. These are major areas of focus for us and things that we feel are most critical to business interests in Southwest County and what's going to be able to add jobs down here, help you increase your own employment. So this year we're focusing on job creation and business retention, budget and tax reform, and healthcare reform. And then under these broad policy platforms, we have a number of small local categories that we also act on, things that cover transportation infrastructure, tourism, obviously, which is a biggie for us down here, and pro-business leadership. And so we take a look at all the bills that are coming up in Sacramento, and we make decisions based on our policy platform and how it's going to impact your business. We meet once a month. We meet the third Monday of every month, and I'd invite you all to come out and join us. It's a great time. It's very interesting to see how the process actually works. But basically, this is a copy of our agenda coming up on Monday. And again, we meet the third Monday of every month. This year, Lake Elsinore is our host chamber. And so we're meeting at the Ortega Adult School, 520 Cheney Street. It's easy to get to, and we meet at noon. And Lake Elsinore is always good about providing lunch. So this coming Monday, it's Freddie Ray's Barbecue. It's a free lunch. And if you've ever had Freddie Ray's Barbecue, it's worth the trip to Lake Elsinore just for that. So it's another good reason to come out. But basically what we do is every month we take a few legislative items that have come up, and we sit down and discuss those. And we provide, our agenda this month actually runs to about 27 pages of information, because on each one of those legislative items there's probably 2 or 3 pages of backup information. I'll show you a little bit more about that in a minute. This month we're going to be talking about SB 33, which is an issue that we've taken up once before. That bill has now gone from the Senate to the Assembly, and so we're going to retake a look at that and decide where we want to be on that. SB 30, a Calderon Joel Anderson bill. I actually have a letter on all of your tables here from Joel Anderson asking for your support on this particular bill. What SB 30 does is it would provide debt forgiveness for people who have been through short sales, which impact a lot of businesses and a lot of people in our valley. A lot of your employees have either gone through foreclosure or gone through short sales. Up until the end of the year, California was in compliance with the federal government in that if you had a short sale and you had some debt forgiven, like if you owe $300,000 on your property and they could only sell it for $200,000, you were forgiven that $100,000 debt on your income tax. You didn't have to pay tax on that. That's actually considered phantom income, even though you didn't see it. It's forgiven debt. And so you were taxed on that. Well, at the federal level, you are not taxed on that. And up until the end of last year, you were not taxed on that in the state of California. The state of California, that expired the end of the year. And so SB 30 is a bill that would bring California back into compliance. However, because it does mean tax revenue to the state of California, this bill is having trouble getting through right now. So the way it stands at the moment is that if you short sell a house, you're not going to be taxed at the federal level, but you're going to have to pay income tax to California state. And so they pulled a trick on us about 2 weeks ago, and they linked this to another bill which would actually raise some additional fees. We don't feel that linking is fair. It's explained in Senator Anderson's letter there, so I'd ask you to take a look at that, sign off on it, and make sure you hand it to me before you leave today, because we're trying to collect enough signatures to hopefully get the Senate to take a hard look at this and decide that really linking those two bills is not fair. They're holding California homeowners hostage. We've got a couple of other bills we're taking a look at. And another thing that we're doing on Monday, and another reason to come out, is we're having a guest speaker on Monday, a gentleman by the name of John Cox, who founded a company called Rescue California Foundation. And John is trying to get a ballot measure onto our ballot next June. And basically what it's proposing is a citizen legislature. And it's a very interesting proposition in that he feels that California government is dysfunctional. Go figure. And part of the reason for that is they put together the legislature as it stands right now, 40 senators, 80 assembly members, at a time when California's population was about 1.5 million people. Today, California's population is about 40 million people, and we have the same 120 people up in Sacramento taking care of your interests. And we don't think that can be done effectively. Obviously, it can't be done effectively. It's being run by special interests and party politics and so forth. And it's a dysfunctional way to govern the state. And so John feels that there's a better way to do that. He's proposing a citizen legislature. So come out for no other reason to come out and see that, because it's very interesting and it will be on the ballot next June, hopefully. We also have a bill tracker, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then we always get updates from our legislators. Now, I'll be honest with you, at the federal level, our senators, Feinstein and Boxer, rarely send their representatives. Only if they need something from us, and they send them over to chat. However, Representatives Calvert and Hunter almost always have their representatives there. From the state level, we have a lot of folks down. Governor Brown never visits us, of course, but Schwarzenegger used to send somebody in occasionally, again, when they needed something from us. But we do have representatives from our local senators, and assembly members always attend our meetings. So it's a lot of give and take. They hear from us what your business interests are, and we hear from them the struggles that they're going through in Sacramento right now and the issues that they're dealing with. And then, of course, we have representatives from our local cities, counties, and so forth, healthcare, utilities, EDC, and so forth that come in and update us. And again, also it's a way for us to communicate your interests, your concerns, and what helps you stay in business and what helps you grow your business. So, again, it's a very interesting time. I'd invite you to that meeting. This is just a little bit of information. This is the first page of about 4 pages of information on SB 33 that we're going to be taking a look at. SB 33 is an interesting bill in that, you're probably aware that 2 years ago, the state stepped in and took away redevelopment funds from all of our cities. That put a real hurt on a lot of cities, Temecula, Murrieta, for example, that used those funds to develop infrastructure and to do just a lot of things within the cities. The state stepped in and took those funds. So this is a way that's been proposed to address that shortfall right now, and it will allow a city to develop what's called an infrastructure development bond. And it would not be a new tax. It would simply allow a city to step in, and, for example, if the fire department in the city had an excess of funds sitting in a pool over here, the city could actually go in and negotiate with the fire department and utilize those funds for an infrastructure development. So it would not increase taxes. It would simply allow the city a little bit more flexibility in getting their hands on funds that exist within a city that are not currently being utilized. So, but it's a tough bill. All of our local legislators have voted against this bill for the main reason, and you can't hardly see it down here on the bottom, but what it does, the way the law currently is, it requires a 2/3 vote of the population in order to form one of these IFDs. This bill would eliminate that 2/3 requirement for the citizens voting. It would basically allow the city to do it on their own, and so a lot of people are concerned that they would open the floodgates and allow cities to really probably overstep, which in some cases is probably true. As we know, some cities certainly have overstepped. The reason we no longer have redevelopment funds is because certain cities overstepped and didn't use the funds for what they were supposed to. So once again, we're taking a hard look at this to see how it impacts our local cities, our local businesses, and what you're able to do as a result of that money. In addition to providing 2 or 3 pages worth of information, the pros and cons of the bill, you hear from the author of the bill, the people who are opposed to the bill. We also put down here a list of all the organizations that support a bill or that oppose the bill. So once again, our council members have all this information at their disposal in order to make a good decision, again, based on what's good for your business here in Southwest County. We don't necessarily care about what happens to a major corporation up in the Bay Area. We're looking out for your interest, what's the impact on our local business community and on our members, our chamber members down here. And then once we make a decision, once the council adopts a position, we send a letter. We send a letter to the particular legislator that's involved. We tell them if we're supporting their bill or if we oppose their bill. We go into detail on why we support or oppose that bill. And then we copy everybody right down here on the bottom. We copy obviously the legislator that we're sending to. We send a letter to the committee that bill is about to be heard in, to the chair and vice chair of that committee, and we also copy all of our local legislators. So they're put on notice when this bill comes up to vote. This is how we think you should vote based on our local business people. What's good for your business down here, this is what we think you should do. And so they're put on notice, this is what we believe, and these are the reasons why. Once we do that, that bill also goes on to what we call our bill tracker. And we track along with this that tells us everything that's going on with that bill. So we start up here in January. Let me see if this is a lot. Ooh, yeah. We start up here in January, we work our way down. And, in January we just had a few bills that we were looking at. Some of those had to do with the fire prevention fee that was put in effect last year, that $150 per parcel fire prevention fee. There were 3 bills introduced trying to get rid of that for other areas. 2 bills for UCR funding, the University of California Riverside Medical Center. One of those carried by Senator Roth, new senator out of Corona. Those 2 bills, I'm very happy to say, have both crossed and are awaiting the governor's signature right now. Those 2 bills would provide $15 million to the UCR Medical School to help them get started. If you've heard from Dr. Olds recently, you know that that's really a great benefit to our area out here. It'll bring in jobs, it'll add to the healthcare field out here. We are an underserved community right now, and it would really help that out. So again, those bills have already gone through. We're extremely pleased that we supported those and that those bills are progressing. So we support all these bills, and we track down here whether we support or oppose it. And then you have to keep track of this stuff so you know exactly what you did, or you can look back on it and say, yeah, we did, we didn't, whatever. It gives you the bill, who the legislator was. They added this year whether it's a Republican or a Democrat that's carrying it, so we know. And again, you're probably aware, this year in Sacramento, for the first time, they have what's called a supermajority. The Democrats control the Assembly, the Senate, and the governor's office. So it puts some business legislation into tricky positions because oftentimes it's the Democratic side of the House that really doesn't understand how businesses work. And so it kind of puts us at a disadvantage. And if you also look at our legislators, our local legislators are all Republican. It puts them at a disadvantage as well. They're oftentimes not able to do any big things up there because they're in the minority. Anything they carry is probably not going to pass. So we have to take a look at that, and we try to be as bipartisan supportive as possible. Unfortunately, we end up opposing more bills by Democrats than we support, but we try to support as many as possible because there are some folks out there who do have an understanding of business and they do put some good bills in place. And so we try to be as supportive of them as possible, even within a single legislator. Darrell Steinberg, for example, the Senate Pro Tem leader, you know, he's got some bills that we oppose vehemently, but he's got a couple of bills that are actually pretty good. He's got one in place right now to modify the California Environmental Quality Act, which is, if you've ever tried to build anything, you know CEQA is a major roadblock to almost any kind of development. Well, Steinberg's got a bill in that would modify that, make it a little bit easier for businesses to develop and to grow. And so when that sort of thing comes along, we like to be as supportive as possible. Well, the other thing that we do on that is we track this out through the end of the year, and we track the votes. So we're going to be watching to see what Senators Emerson, Roth, and Anderson do, as well as Assemblymember Melendez, Marie Waldron, Brian Jones, Eric Linder, and anybody else, Brian Nastandy, who happens to cross over. And then we're also going to track and see if Governor Brown vetoes the bill or passes the bill. So far this year, we've taken, we've looked at about 93 total measures has been considered by the council. 81 of those have been state bills. We've supported 33, we've opposed 48. We've also taken positions on a number of local issues. Those are things like maintaining the citrus vineyard designation for the wine country out here. Another measure that would preserve state parks. Another measure that would allow us to continue to hold special events like 4th of July celebrations and shoot off fireworks and so forth without getting an environmental impact report that has to be prepared at great cost and in advance of any event like this. So we like to, again, try to keep the local issues at the forefront. We've supported some federal issues, a couple for Congressman Calvert and a couple of others. And as of mid-year, because about 2 weeks ago they did what's called crossover, where any bill that's introduced in the Assembly has to pass over to the Senate if it's going to become a bill this year. Anything introduced in the Senate has to pass all their committees and get passed to the Assembly. So that happened about 2 weeks ago. And we're happy to say that as it stands right now, we've had 25 wins, which means 9 of the bills that we supported out of the 33 passed over to the Senate side. 16 of the bills that we opposed failed. So sometimes that's all you can do. Sometimes you can't work to pass stuff. All you can do is get in the way of bad stuff, unfortunately. So we did manage to, not we single-handedly, we don't have quite that stroke, even though we'd like to, but 16 of the bills that we opposed did fail, did not go through, so that's going to be a boon to businesses. And several of those bills, by the way, there were 6 bills in place that would have allowed cities, water districts, school districts, and so forth to raise your taxes on a simple majority vote. Right now, if you want to raise your own taxes, you have to have a 2/3 vote of the people out there. They would have reduced that voter threshold. And so we had some real concerns about that because as the state continues to take money, they shift more and more responsibilities to our local city and county governments, things like the prisoner transfer that you're seeing go on that started last year and so forth. So they shift those responsibilities back to a county or city level, but they don't shift any money back with it. So it puts great pressure on our cities and counties to increase their revenue, and of course that means higher taxes, higher fees, and greater regulation for all of our citizens and all of our businesses down here. So, we like to stand against those things. We did have 16 what I consider losses. Those are bills that we opposed that went ahead and went all the way through. So we'll be keeping our eye on that. Why do we track all this? Because at the end of the year we put together, this is from last year, we put together a report card for our local legislators because we want to hold them responsible to you. We want you to know exactly what they're up to up there, because you may not have an opportunity to talk to or hear from your local legislators at all through the year. So we want to provide this report card as they face their next election campaign, for example, and say, you voted against business interests, you voted against my interest 80% of the time. You don't deserve my vote next time around. Okay? I'm very happy to say that our local folks down here, again, are fairly business friendly. For example, last year we had Senator Emerson voted with us 89% of the time. Senator Anderson, 93% of the time. Kevin Jeffries was 86% of the time. Brian Nestandi, who was our representative last year before redistricting, again voted with us 89% of the time. One of the big surprises down here, Jerry Brown voted for business-friendly legislation or vetoed business-unfriendly bills 62% of the time. He's a Democrat. You can never tell what Jerry's going to do. You really, even the people up there don't know what he's going to do. Even he doesn't know what he's going to do. About half the time. The funny thing is, the last time we had a Republican in name governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, his business-friendly vote record was about 40–45%. So Jerry Brown is actually a more business-friendly governor than Arnold Schwarzenegger was. So once again, he does some strange things sometimes, but Jerry has generally been more favorable to your interest and to business interest than his predecessor was. And we're very happy about that. He, like I said, he comes off the wall sometimes and does some things that, you just kind of shake your head, but at other times he really steps up, and if you've had an opportunity to hear him, he's a great speaker. He's very entertaining and a very personable fellow. And you have to try to get along with him because he's the guy ultimately that sits down with the veto pen and says this is going to pass or this is not. So again, we publish this. The chambers all have access to this, and they publish this in their newsletters. We try to make it as available as possible. When we had a local newspaper, they used to publish these results for us every year. So once again, you know what our legislators are up to, and you know what you can expect, and you know how to hold them accountable in what they're doing for us up there. So finally, I would encourage you to, visit our website, southwestcalifornia.biz, and we try to keep that updated. We keep our minutes, we keep our agendas on there. On the home page is information about, this particular one was from the California Chamber President Arnold Zarenberg, who came down and spoke with us last year at an event, and so there's always interesting things on there. And then you can get daily updates on business-friendly legislation, updates to our bill trackers, what we're looking at any given time and so forth, available on facebook.com, SWCLC, and we invite you to visit that as well because, again, there's daily updates on there, places for you to ask questions, comment on things, and so forth. And I believe that's about all I got this morning. So once again, I encourage you to take that letter on your table there from Senator Anderson. Read through that. It impacts thousands, literally thousands of homeowners across the state of California, and a lot right here in our local community because, as you know, we were all hit pretty hard during the recent recession. And a lot of folks, unfortunately, lost their homes or had to short sale their homes. This impacts all of those folks down here, some of your neighbors. So take a look at that, sign it, get it to me before you leave today. I would appreciate it. Senator Anderson would appreciate it. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. We meet the third Monday of every month. We're meeting this coming Monday, June 17th at noon. And this year we are hosted by Lake Elsinore Chamber at Cheney Ortega Adult School, 520 Cheney Street. It's right down across from the Lake Elsinore Municipal Valley Water District office there on Cheney Street. So it's easy to find. Freddie Ray's Barbecue providing lunch this week. If you don't like anything else we do, at least come out and have some Freddie Ray's because it's good barbecue. So. Yes, Adrian. Just show up. Just show up.